Good morning, everybody. Give me a few minutes to present to you the main focus of my report and the resolution. We will be talking about the details in the next couple of days, I'm aware, but I would like just to give you an overview. I am very glad that in the second committee we have a very good working atmosphere, I may say, with our chair, Asa Guliev, and our vice chair, Artur Gerasimov, who, as you know, is not here because of the situation in Ukraine. But I really would like also to begin with greeting Artur Gerasimov and lauding him for the for the big commitment he has to this committee despite all the difficulties. I would also like to say thank you to the Secretariat. Here is Marco Bonobello, but also a lot of other people are engaged in making this possible. And one more person to mention, Tabitha Rauscher, who is just standing there taking a picture of me, has also been very instrumental on making this happen, because writing such a report and a resolution, as you can imagine, is a huge task. We have spent so many nights in the spring working on this. Now you have a piece of paper, a few pages, and you're like, yeah, it's nice. But we spent many sleepless nights on making it possible, so thank you also to Tabitha and my staff in Vienna. Now, I would like to build upon the most excellent speech that our chair just gave and go into the details of the report, very much based on what we have heard. Security and stability in the fields of economy, environment, technology and science is absolutely key. You know, sometimes the second committee is maybe, many people don't think it's so interesting. Well, I think it is the most interesting in these times. And it was also the most forward-looking, because the crises we see today are solved by the approaches that we discuss in the second committee. This is about the war, an unjust and unprovoked military invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation and its consequences. It's about inflation. It's still about post-pandemic recovery. And it's also about societies that have become increasingly frustrated and distressed, and especially the young people. So you see there's something that's not right, and how we deal with it, to a very large aspect, is something that we discuss in this committee. So our chair has rightly said I had a focus on energy security in this report, and this is why I would like to begin with the topic of energy security. We are all very much on the same page that we need to transition to clean energy, and there are a number of reasons. One is, obviously, our climate worries and concerns. Another one is geopolitical. There are still many countries in the OSZE region who heavily depend on the Russian Federation with regard to energy. And it is also a public health concern. You know, pollution harms people, and pollution doesn't stop at borders. We have seen a number of examples of one pollution incident in one country, but the effects largely handed down to another country, right? So we need to find common solutions. The same is true about water. Water scarcity has direct implications on human health, on sanitation, but also on political stability. And in the OSZE region, we have 150 shared waters, rivers, lakes. So obviously we need to find common solutions. And there's another issue that we have not talked about much, and that is microplastics. We need to do more research, but there are several indicators that microplastics pose unprecedented health threats on us. And I want to thank John Elder from Canada, who drafted a supplementary item on this issue, because my report has limited space, of course, and I was very happy to help and co-sponsor the drafting of this supplementary item. Now, so we all are on the same page that we need energy security through energy diversification, yes? However, there's also things that we have to be aware of, especially as parliamentarians. Do we have enough electricity? Right? If we focus so much on electricity, are our grids reliably supporting the diversification of energy sources? Researchers at an Austrian university told me, without sufficient energy, living standards will decline. I mean, you could say that's obvious, but I think it needs to be said in a parliamentary context. And the stability of political systems and democracy is directly connected to the stable and affordable provision of energy, right? Stable and affordable provision of energy results in stability. Now, this is why we have to raise the flag and say energy transition must not result in a degradation of energy reliability, right? Think of, for example, the danger of a blackout. Are you discussing these in your countries? I suppose yes, we do in Austria. Have we thought about ways of convening parliament for emergency legislation in case of a long blackout? Do you have measures in place? That's things as parliamentarians we should think about. Now, energy transition must also not lead into such an increase of costs, energy costs, that mobility will be reserved to the rich, right? It must also not result in deindustrialization or create major competitive disadvantages for our countries in the OSZE region versus other regions, right? So we do not want to cause economic decline because that is not good for the people, and as parliamentarians we represent people. We also don't want to seize and stop the development for less developed countries, right? Because we all know that we became wealthy, or many of our countries became wealthy because of our access to cheap energy. So, this being said, the solution is clean energy transition has to be brought about through technology and science, and this is why we are here in the second committee. Science must be equipped to research and research broadly, and we have to cooperate in coming up with the best solutions, because we cannot do this alone, we can only do this together. Another concern is critical infrastructure, which we need to protect, and cybersecurity threats. And I will remind you of what happened at the Kakhovka Dam, and this happened after we handed in report and resolution. This is why you do not find it referenced. But we will be we will find a way with amendments to add this into our resolution. There is nuclear threats if we do not protect sufficiently critical infrastructure. Besides this broad and big topic, there are issues in the report, such as medical security. One issue is the production of essential medication in our proximities in the OSZE region. I thought we could improve that. Another thing in the report is the right to inclusion and participation independent of people's ability to use digital means. That is becoming an issue with the older generation. I mention human trafficking, which has shifted to become a technology-initiated crime. I talk about the Arctic, and that it needs peaceful economic development and the protection of its very fragile environment. I talk about food security, and there I mention the crime of the Holodomor, which was an organized starvation of Ukrainians by Russia in the years 1932 and 1933, claiming millions of lives. And you see patterns that seem to be reappearing. And I mentioned the issues of artificial intelligence and data management, which are topics that, should I be re-elected as rapporteur in this committee, I would like to focus on, especially in my next report. Now, to conclude, motivating people to engage and contribute in the areas of concern of the second committee is key for us parliamentarians. We need people to engage in science, in public discourse. We do not need people to withdraw in frustration. And this extends especially to the young generation. So I think it makes sense to join forces and work together and to communicate also the positive things. The more negative we speak, the more people will be frustrated didn't withdraw. You know, there were achievements. For example, harmful chemicals we have cut by 50% in the last decades. Rare species have reappeared. And, you know, I have 4 children, and my 9-year-old said, if you go and work to protect the environment, do not forget to protect the reefs, right? So beautiful, little boy. And we do see positive developments. The Great Barrier Reef is showing signs of recovery, and they say it's better than it was in the last 30 years. We need to say that as well. If we do this, people will say, okay, so let's join forces and improve the situation. So instead of anxiety, I advocate to find opportunities in crisis. And OSCE is at a turning point. You could say, where's OSCE going? What's the purpose? And maybe this is our great moment to look for new ways of cooperation in issues that we cannot solve alone. And if it's on us to establish OSCE as the one platform who can actually do this for the entire region. In this sense, I'm very much looking forward to working with you in the next couple of days on all of these key issues. Many thanks.